So my name is Brian McCaffrey. I've been working at the center for 5 years, but I'd had losses in my own life, and I had been encouraged at that time to go find a grief therapist. Didn't know that that even existed until someone told me, and went and saw that therapist, and really it changed me. It changed how I was looking at my grief. It really helped me. And I continued to see that therapist across multiple losses of my life. At that point, I had realized I was not only seeing them for losses in my life, but I would describe in therapy losses that friends were experiencing and how I was engaged with them around their losses. And talking about my own realization that I could sit with people who were experiencing grief and I was comfortable. It wasn't something that I was walking away from. It was actually something I was walking towards.
Wow, just a door opened, you kind of found a new sense of purpose.
I really did. I think, it was very much a sense of being drawn to this, and I think people, when I went back to school, said, do you know what kind of counseling you want to do? And when I'd say grief therapy. I think one thing that differentiates the center from other practices like this is the center deals with children at a very young age, 4 years old, 5 years old, all the way up. We deal with people all the way up as old as they get. We do have a clinical practice, counseling in a one-on-one or couples or family therapy. But the center also wants to try to offer other ways for people to engage. So there's an adult group program where people can come in, know they're with other people in their group that have a similar loss event, and they meet for 6 weeks consecutively, and they're facilitated by someone that works for the center. But that way, we view that as a way people can meet peers. We have specific offerings for children. So where we're actually filming this is in a building called Nello's Corner. So from September to May, the center runs a free program funded by donations, grants, where children between the ages of probably about 5 and 18 get grouped together by age and come twice a month to be with other children. And again, they get to do activities, have grief circles, have a chance to express what they're feeling around the loss in their life.
Wow.
Right? So those are all different engagement models. And then I'd say the center, as a community provider, really wants to extend out into other nonprofits, schools, governmental agencies to help in any way we can around this topic of loss and grief.
Let's talk about grief specifically.
Sure.
How would you define it?
People many times associate grief and loss with a death loss, which is the primary support work and companioning work the center's doing, that people come to see us, that they've experienced a death loss in their life. Were there things they feel were unresolved that they are still trying to work through? Was everything completely resolved at time of death, but they're struggling with the idea of what it means to actually live their life, the remainder of their life, without that physical person there with them. And I think that can be a surprise to some people. They sort of think, well, the grief is going to only be about the part of my life this person touched that died. And they can be surprised that other parts of their life are also affected because the grief is pervasive, right? The grief starts to affect all of you, not only the part of you that was touching that person. There's a great picture of grief that shows, instead of that being, it says what we want grief to be, and it shows like a straight line going from A to B.
Yeah.
And it says, well, what is grief actually? And it shows this big ball of yarn in the middle.
Oh, wow.
Right?
That's great.
Because it's, as you said, it's moving in all different directions at all different times, and it's not one thing. Sometimes it's many things happening all at the same time.
You Google grief,
okay,
and you come across these 5 stages,
right?
And they're numbered.
So that model was from an educator named Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, famous educator in this field. But that model is a little bit of an older model, and in some ways misapplied, in that she was really speaking towards her research of people who were terminally ill and what they were feeling, which is different than someone grieving the death of a person. It gives you the sense that grief is going to somehow go through this almost timed stage gate process,
right,
and be defined by these 5 terms. neither of which is true. That model also gives you a sense that somehow your grief stops at a point, right? You'll finish that 5th stage and you'll be done. And I think one thing we at the center really work to normalize with children, with parents, with anyone who comes to see us, is that you will be feeling a part of this loss throughout the rest of your life. It's not how do you finish feeling it, it's how do you integrate and carry the feeling that you're going to have. It means you've strengthened yourself to be able to live with it.
So for this short film showcase that I created called Precious Treasures, which you're well aware of.
I am.
We focused on not the loss of life necessarily, but these totems or symbols or artifacts that represent these lives.
It's really something that becomes a key for them to connect, to unlock a door, to help them connect with their person. It can surprise people what those things are. It can surprise them how emotional it is. It's sometimes to get rid of anything that their person has touched. Right? So I think when we work with people, one thing we try to normalize is sometimes they are really unable to maybe go through all their person's clothing, to go through photographs. And we normalize that's okay. You know, at the right time in the right way, you'll be able to approach those things. But it's okay to feel like there's too much emotion, that when you go to touch them, to go through them, or to think about the idea of donating them, giving them away, that's too painful.
So the first step is acknowledging that, validating it.
Yes.
But then
begin very small and really manage your own sense of expectations about what you're trying to do. Right? So maybe the goal is not to clean out the closet in one day. Mm-hmm. The goal is to maybe take out like 10 hangers, look at it, and if you're able to do that, that's enough as a start, and to try to work your way into it to see how it makes you feel to do it.
Is there like a question that you would give them, something that they could look at an item and ask themselves, like, this is the criteria by which I should,
Honestly, it can come down to timing and space. For some, if at some point, if they're trying to maybe sell a house and there's a financial impact to that, then they're trying to work their own emotions to fit a clock. That's a little bit tougher.
Right. There's a sense of urgency.
Can be, and it's not fully in their control. People struggle with that even outside of grief, right? There's books written about how do you slim down? How do you declutter? A really famous book is Maria Kondo's book, which I reference to people, right? And one thing she talks about, her questions are things like, once you separate, she has you separate things into piles, right? Like easy to give away, not so sure, or things I could donate, things I'm not sure I can give away. And when you're looking at almost like the things you're not so sure you can give away, her question is, does it give you joy? Now, I think joy is in the eye of the beholder. What does joy mean? I think for a grief loss, it can be, what specific connection does this give you that is somehow you feel you won't be able to access without it? I think another question is, people can really struggle with the idea that once their person has died, that anything that person has touched becomes a finite set. There's not anything new that they're going to touch. So that as you start to give things away, or the idea of giving things away or disposing of them, you're actually limiting your connection through their physical touch. Right? And that's really powerful for people because that's so physical. I mean, you can't deny they won't touch anything anymore. So I think what I try to work with people on that is this sense of, okay, but there's touching physically, and then there's, well, how did they touch you in life? What were qualities about them that touched you? Was it their kindness, their humor? So that can help people see a different boundary about, oh, right, like just because I don't have everything they've touched doesn't mean they're not still a part of me, doesn't mean I don't feel how they're affecting my life.
Right, like that they've actually played a role in sculpting the person that I am today.
Who they are, who they became, and that they can continue to sculpt that, Ryan, right? One of the newer pieces of sort of grief education that we talk about is continuing bonds. This idea that after a person has died, you still have an opportunity for an ongoing dynamic relationship with that person. To really have them feel them be a part of your life, to be sharing with them what's happening in your life, to have a sense that they're participating in your life. In grief, we can feel that people are somehow losing space with us, right? That as time passes, time becomes almost a physical distance, that you start to feel like your person is back there at some other year when they died. And I think continuing bonds challenges us, or gives us the opportunity to say, no, if they're with you, then as you travel through life and time keeps passing, they're right up with you. They're not back where they died. And if they're right up with you, they're experiencing what you're experiencing, and you get to share that with them and have a sense of them through your life, and that your understanding of them will be different as your life changes.
Wow.
So I think when you focus on that type of relationship, those physical items, certain physical items, are worth keeping. I understand why people keep them. They're really valuable to have. But it can help people see they may not need everything, right? They may not need everything.
I could imagine people hearing this are hearing it through the lens of like their religious upbringing, or, you know, the afterlife, and how we're connected or not connected to that dimension.
Right, right. So know that for the center's point of view, right? So we're non-denominational. We serve all faiths, all backgrounds, all credos, all concepts of death, life after death. So we meet any client where they are. So we all have clients that work here as therapists, we have in groups, where some will say, look, my belief system is when my person has died, they're dead. Our existence is this physical plane, and when they've died, there isn't a place they go. Their life has ended. Okay, and I think totally fine. And everything I said about continuing bond can still be true, because that's based on the relationship you built with the person in life.
Right.
Still being a part of yourself.
Right.
It isn't predicated that somehow you believe the person exists somewhere else.
Right, that they're necessarily like right here.
Right, that they don't have to be in some sort of universal energy place, good place, heaven, if that's your concept.
On the other hand,
I was going to say, now for people who do have a religious background, some of them may conceptualize that idea of a continuing bond as, oh, not only is the person with me, but I see them continuing in another form on a different plane. For some people, that can be very comforting.
yeah.
For others, it can almost be a little challenging with the idea that their person can still see them, but they can't see their person. And to know almost their person's existing somewhere else that they can't quite get to can almost increase their longing.
Whoa.
The sense that, well, how do I get access to that? Because knowing somehow their spirit is still somewhere, I want that in my life. If it exists, how do I get to it?
What do you say?
First off, I normalize this is back to your human longing, right? That when that person was alive and we're physical beings living in a physical plane, you knew how to access them. There they were. You could look right at them, see them, talk to them, feel them, hug them. If they're on a different plane, the physical side of you is still trying to fill in that gap and say, well, if I know they exist somewhere, how can I almost transcend my own physical experience to be a part of that? And it's almost helping them understand, well, but see, we're still living our physical life here. So it's maybe more, how can you feel connected to them even when you can no longer see or have conversations the way we are right now? One thing about grief, people who mean well, your friends, maybe even other family, will sometimes say when you're sad, oh, don't be sad, you know they're in a better place. We can know, and maybe even believe is the better word, they're in a better place, and still miss them, and still be sad that they're not here, that we wish they were here.
Wow.
It's not a topic that people feel comfortable head-on addressing many times.
Yeah.
Right? If you're experiencing grief, you're living it. But then many times, unfortunately, the people around you who are not experiencing it, it can be awkward almost for them. They don't know exactly what to say or do. And so the sad truth sometimes for many of the children, couples, families, individuals that we work with here is for as many people that they see come forward to help them, including people they might not have expected, that they're surprised have stepped in to become a really significant part of their support system, that there's people that they expected to be a linchpin support person for them who disappears. And they're hurt. I don't understand where they went is a lot of times the comment you get. And what we talk to them about is, well, people are very uncomfortable with this topic. It could have triggered something in them. Maybe they've had another loss in their own life that this is a reminder of. Maybe they're uncomfortable with this whole concept. Maybe they don't know what to say to you, and if they can't say something, they don't want to be near you to say the wrong thing. Yeah. They're afraid they're going to hurt you. And so we really lack a way to have any access to even that this is happening to people, but it's happening to a lot of people. And so what I loved about your films was, I think people started watching them thinking, oh yeah, this is a film about a house, or this is a film about a car. And then as they'd sit there, they would start to feel more than that. You and I sitting talking about this, that helped give voice to it in a way that they could not only then name it, they could start to share some of their own reflections and experiences. And my sense was for many of the people that we had that live in-person dialogue with, they hadn't often had a chance to do that.
It was almost like a group session in and of itself.
A little bit.
It wasn't an intimate conversation.
It was not an intimate conversation.
They were like, I'm gonna say it in front of everybody.
Right, and I think, but they felt safe to do that, right?
Yeah,
so I think the films really helped put them in a mind space, and then us coming up and saying, we're gonna openly talk about this and make this connection. They leaned right into it. They really did. It was really special to be a part of, honestly.
And I can't thank you for enough. It meant a lot to me and to other people, and I'll treasure it forever.
We will too. I will personally, and I think the center was so appreciative that you reached out to us, because again, for us, the more we can get out word about these concepts, and the more people know we're here, right? It's always great for people to know we're here. One thing I say to many clients who come see me, Ryan, especially first session, I'll say, what was it like to turn in the driveway? Because for so many people, we've been here long enough and our sign's been out on the road long enough that they'll say, oh, I know exactly where you are. I've driven by the sign all the time. And then one day they turn in. And many of the people will say, well, I always wondered who went here. And now I'm here, right? I never thought I was going to be one of those people, right? Or I wondered who went there. And now I don't have to wonder anymore. I'm coming here. So I think it's one thing to maybe have some sense of our sign. It's another thing to know we are here, right? That if you are struggling with grief at any age, we're trying to offer and be present in a way that you can come engage with us and get support that you need.